Welcome back, everyone. So in an all-out effort to completely strong-arm Russia's ability to strike Ukraine from the skies, the New York Times is reporting the Biden administration is scrambling to cut off Iran's ability to produce and send President Putin those kamikaze drones, akin to its years-long push to halt Tehran's drive towards nuclear weapons. The Times is also reporting the program also aims to give Ukraine the ability to shoot down any kamikaze drone that Russia manages to acquire, as well as to target their launch sites. I want to bring in more analysis on this. Lisa Daftari, counterterrorism and foreign policy expert and the editor-in-chief of the Foreign Desk and the host of the Foreign Desk podcast, joins us now. Lisa, great to have you in.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, we've known about these drones and how effective they've been in Putin's aggression in Ukraine. In this report, Lisa, it says that President Joe Biden's campaign is cooperating closely with Israel on the issue, building Jerusalem's experience thwarting Iranian drone attacks. And obviously, Netanyahu's now in power. Where do you see this going in the next coming weeks?
Yeah, well, we have now Netanyahu, who is very, very staunchly against Iran gaining power and influence in the region. So obviously a wonderful partner for the United States to establish security in the Middle East, particularly starting with the Iran regime. Look, the United States is a bit behind on the Iran issue. Up until a few months ago, we were at the negotiating table trying to play nice with the mullahs to try to strike a deal with them to get back into the Obama era. CPOA, the nuclear deal. The sanctions have been watered down and not enforced properly. And now here we are, 4 months into the people's revolution on the ground in Iran, where people are being brutally murdered just for coming out and peacefully protesting. It's a women's rights movement. And how bad does the United States look that we're now trying to play catch up. Now, recently trying to reinforce some sanctions, trying to pull away or at least create some distance at the negotiating table with the Iran regime. And of course, now looking into the drones that the Iran regime has been providing Russia that have been fired down or used in Ukraine. So the United States is trying to now work together, of course, with Israel and anyone else who is trying to stop them.
Yeah, you know, you're right, too. I mean, the JCPOA deal was so bad, and people were wondering why we're even negotiating, and it was still on the table. It was insane. You know, we talk about this, uprising in Iran, and it is amazing to see people risking their lives and women, like you said. Do you feel like it will get even more attention? Because obviously this is a very young movement. This is a new generation. There's been some coverage of it, Lisa, but sometimes there hasn't been enough. And that if the Iranian government is taking notice, that more people in the West need to support this.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what the Iranian people and those who support them around the world have been criticizing the Western media and as well as Western leaders who have, again, been very slow to support this. But the Iranian people are saying, if you're not going to help us, at least don't stand in our way. 4 months into this, they are still being courageous. They're still coming out onto the streets and they're making their stories known by sending out videos and pictures. I mean, at the Foreign Desk, we're putting this up, hourly. We don't have reporters on the ground, and that's something that is part of the Western media's approach to covering something. But again, we have citizen journalists on the ground in Iran telling their stories. Right. And trying to, of course, petition leaders here in the West to do more for them.
Lisa, hand in hand, also what we have happening in Afghanistan is shocking, and more coverage probably, wouldn't hurt this either, because the women who are under that oppressive rule of the Taliban, not only are they not allowed to go to schools, we've seen that, they can't be involved with NGOs are pulling out now. They're not going to let women have aid workers. We just have about 30 seconds left, but this is a huge story as well when it comes to women's rights. I mean, we're going into 2023 here, really disgraceful.
Absolutely. We talked a lot about the withdrawal from Afghanistan and what a debacle that was, but we have kind of lost sight of what happens for the people of Afghanistan. And guess what? Courage is contagious. And they're looking at the women of Iran coming out onto the streets and they're saying, we can do this too. Wonderful stories coming out of Afghanistan right now about the men supporting the women, walking out of the universities, walking out of their job sites and saying, we support the women and we want them to be here and part of society. Look how quickly the Taliban turned everything. They promised the West that this would not be the Taliban of the 90s. And guess what? It absolutely is. Sharia law is in place. They are enforcing it. They're not allowing women to travel alone, leave the house alone, or go to school. So we're seeing hopefully a lot of support by their male counterparts and, of course, the world, the global society, and, of course, the mainstream media covering this much more like you are.
Yeah, we certainly hope to give it a lot of attention in the new year as well. These are very brave women. They are speaking up for freedom for future generations, and it cannot go unnoticed. They're risking their lives. Lisa Daftari, great analysis. Thanks so much for joining us today on the program.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.